What up, 11 o'clock? Tone it down, 11 o'clock. I like you guys. I like you get sleep, you get coffee, and you bring your 4 million kids that are in the back right now. Which, by the way, because this service always fills up fast, if you have a middle school or high school kid, because Collide's kicking off here soon, it would be awesome if you never came back to the 11 o'clock service and went to the 5 p.m. service and freed up space in here. And I say that, in all lovingness, because this service always fills up fast. And so, man, if you have a middle school or high school kid and you go, man, we could sleep in and then have breakfast and then go to church later, and then you can just leave your kids here after third service, and then you just get to go out and do parent stuff like, before you had kids. And so it's awesome, and you can do that. And our children's ministry area fills up super fast too, because you guys love being married and stuff, and that's all I'll say about that. And so, man, I know like our 11 o'clock hour, our volunteers back there, they're great, but they would love to see some of your kids come at 9 a.m. And so that way it just kind of ease the burden a little bit. And so if you thought about, man, maybe I could free up. And what's cool is people that are new, they go, man, feels really full, and I'm not sure if I want to come back. And so if you went to a different service, that's why we offer multiple services, you free up that opportunity, because this is the service where most people that would come for the first time would come. And so that's an easy way for you to go, man, I want to help somebody else engage God in their faith. I'm excited today, but I will preface everything as we get into week 2 of our beautiful collision series with this. I'm going to sit down today. Is that okay with you guys? Is that all right? Yeah, some of you guys, I don't know about that. Like, you're more energetic when you're standing up. Well, sometimes you're more energetic than normal, and so you can be average sometimes, and I'll be average sometimes. And so I woke up this morning, and I was like, oh, that was good sleep. And then I sat up like this. I was like, oh, dear Lord. And something happened in my back because I'm getting older. And so when you're 20, enjoy your 20s, guys. If you're in that age bracket, wear your body out, eat whatever you want, because one day you're going to look at Oreos and gain 5 pounds. And you're going to wake up and it just hurts and stays hurt. And so I'm excited about today, but I'm going to sit down, and if you don't like that, tough. And so, man, we're in this series, and we started last week called Beautiful Collision, where we looked at what does it look like for my life and your life and all that good stuff. And so here's your life and my life. And there's great stuff that happens, and there's beautiful things that happen. And there's also some things that we don't like to tell people, and things where the ways that we fail and the way that we hurt other people and all of that stuff. And we have it over here, and we're like, man. And then there's God on this side, and this beauty and this grace and this redemption, this setting us free. And what happens when those things collide? We believe that they're absolutely beautiful, but it also gets super messy. What does it look like to follow God in our mess, whether you've been tracking with him for years and you've been following him, or you're new to this and you're like, I'm taking baby steps into church, baby steps to sit down, baby steps in going to a small group, and you're working your way through that. You're like, man, I don't know if I want God and Jesus to collide with my life. And we started off looking at the life of this guy named Joseph, and we're tracking through last week and then this week and the next 2 weeks about what does it look like to follow God and then things don't go right. Because the fallacy is that you follow God and everything's happy and everything's okay and everything's good. And then people start following God and they're like, wait a second, like I still have hardships. I still have pain. I still encounter things that I just go, man, I thought that this whole God thing, I think what I heard maybe growing up when we were little kids, or maybe we were engaging in a different place of faith, and we were like, man, they told me everything was going to be okay. Or I watched that guy on the TV, and he said if I sent in $35, I would be cured. And I sent in $35, and I'm not cured. And so does God, is he a liar? Is the church fake? And I would say, man, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that someone sold you a bill of goods and said that if you follow God, everything would be fine and that you wouldn't have hurt. Because the truth is, even in the life of this guy named Joseph, he had hurt, and he was following God, and God gave him a promise, but there were still moments of hardship. God gave him this amazing promise, and then his brothers go, we kind of hate you because you're dad's favorite, so we're going to beat you up, sell you into slavery, cover your garments with animal blood, and we're going to go tell mom and dad that you're dead. Thanks, God, I'm really glad I'm following you. This is awesome. No, it's not. And so what happens when God gives us that promise and that clarity and we latch onto that, then what? then what happens in the rest of the story. And we're going to track with that today a little bit. And so if you have a Bible, we're going to be over in Genesis chapter 39. It's in the Old Testament of the Bible. It's the very first book in the Bible. And so if you're like, man, I don't know my way around, we made it super easy today. Just flip open to the front. It's the first book. Look for the big numbers, 39. And then we're going to be in verse 6 and following a little bit later. You can also download a Bible to your mobile device if you don't have one. We give them away for free at the Get Connected table, hard copy Bibles. You could download one. And here's the thing. I've had a lot of people say, like, I'm reading this, but this does not look the same as what you guys are saying or what's on the screen. In the top of your digital Bible, and you'll download the one that has this little icon, I'll stand up here for a second. There's like some little, like a few initials there. If you click on that, and you look down and go look for the NIV, the New International Version, that'll help you a ton. And you can change the different versions of the Bible, because I have people all the time going like, man, I download that Bible, but you're saying weird stuff that isn't in my Bible, and I don't understand. And it's just the different versions and translations that are there, and the NIV is an easy to understand translation. You can also download the Forefront app, and you can take notes today, connect with gel groups, and I'll tell you this, we have two things that are happening this week. One, there's been a lot of celebration stuff. We sent away our kids to school, which you guys are excited about that too. And so that was awesome. My wife and I celebrated 11 years married, which is pretty cool that we were doing that. Thanks. Appreciate that. I think I'm more excited about it than she is. She's like, I'm stuck with that guy for another year. And we also celebrated on Monday officially being in the building for 1 year. We've been in this place, and it's been awesome. And I would invite you out. You're going to get these on your way out, and we gave them to you last week. If you have plans for next Friday, you should cancel them and be a part of this, because we're going to celebrate together this coming Friday at 7 p.m. and really just... Chris is going to lead us in some worship songs, and we're going to talk about some of your stories and things that have been happening and what's been going on across the globe, and food programs in Vietnam and what's taking place there, which at the end of the month, I'm pretty cool. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, even though we haven't said anything. We have some of our friends from Vietnam are going to be here the last Sunday this month. And so they're visiting the States, and they'll be with us in every one of our services. I can't wait, except I'm going to be gone for the first two, and so I get to miss them, but I'll be here in the evening one. They're going to be on stage and sharing, and it's going to be awesome. If you're gone, you're missing out. And so we're celebrating this Friday night, and gel groups start this week, which I know you saw it in the announcement video. I can't say enough how important being in a small group is. This is just kind of an aside from the message and what we talk about today. Man, if your schedule is crazy and you have to pick between like coming on a Sunday morning or Sunday evening or being in gel group, go to a gel group. And people are like, are you serious? You actually want me to miss like Sunday services? I don't want you to miss this, because I think it's important to be together. But if your schedule doesn't allow you to only do one or the other, go to gel group. And man, it's life-changing. I'm anxiety-ridden, and so if you're like me and you're an introvert and you have anxiety, I'm there with you. But take extra medication and show up to group, because I'm telling you, it's changing my life every time I sit in my living room with people. And like our group has grown to a small church at this point, and it like went from a handful of people to like close to 30-something people, and now we have 3 different groups, and there's a bunch of groups starting, and I want you to be in one. Because I think you're missing out if you're not in one. It just completely changes you. And the temptation is to say, we're going to be talking about this temptation trap. The temptation is to say, well, I just got a lot going on. Well, then you have twofold problems. One, you need to be in community with people. And two, your schedule's telling you what to do instead of you telling your schedule what you're going to do. And man, I want you to be a part. And so that's my little pitch for that. Yeah, all right. Why don't you pray with me as we get into stuff today? God, I just thank you for pain medication as you help move in my back. And I thank you that we get to be together, and we're all tempted to say things like, man, I didn't want to come this morning, or man, I got a lot going on, or man, God isn't doing what I wanted him to do, and so I might just check out. God, I know we all have stuff. Maybe we had a fight, or as my wife and I would call them, a car conversation on the way to church. Maybe we had a really rough week at work. Maybe we wanted to drop our kids off today at church and pick them up next week because they're just, God, whatever's happening, will you calm our nerves and help us today? help us lay everything at your feet because you're big enough to take it, and give us a peace as we're receptive and our hearts are ready to hear what you have to share with us. God, we love you, and it's as one church we pray. Amen. As we talk about this temptation trap, there's one instance, there's all sorts of things that we could be tempted with. One in particular that I think, and it's a scenario that brings out possibly the worst in people, and it usually happens later on in the evening, sometimes in the afternoon, but later on in the evening, you get in the car and you look at either your spouse, significant other, or the people that you're spending time with, and you go, so where do you want to eat? Yeah, there's this moment that happens, and maybe this is played out for you. If not, kind of look at it because there's already, usually emotions are high because you're hungry. Usually when people get hungry, they get a little cranky, or as I like to call it, hangry. You're hungry and angry. And so you look at one another and you ask them, so what do you want to eat? And usually the response is what? I don't know, or I don't care, both of which are lies. It's a lie. You know what you want, but you just want it because you're trying to be courteous. And so I'll look over at my lovely wife, and I'll say to her, what do you want to eat? So I don't care. And I know as I'm processing it, that's not true. But I'll begin to give the litany of places that I know she already knows are around town. And then I know it's a lie because I'll name something, and she'll go, no. Wait, time out. Because I thought what I heard you process is it hit the inside of my ear and processed up to my brain. You know, that thing that God created. I think what I heard you say earlier was you don't care, but yet I'm hearing that that's not true. And so let me name something else. And so I'll name something else. No, I'm not in the mood for that. Wait a second, because I thought what I heard you say, and so this is what the temptation now is like, I know that I claim I love you, but I'm not quite sure that I like you right now. And the vice versa, as this goes on, and I'm the same way. If she's driving, which happens very rarely because I like to be in control, God's working on my heart on that. And so we'll have this conversation. She'll ask me, what do you want to eat? And I'll do the same thing. I don't care. And then she'll name something, and I'll be like, no, not that. And we'll go back and forth. And so one Sunday in particular, we have this conversation after church. I had a kind of rough morning. It was years ago. I was working at a different church. And as we're walking through this and we're talking, and I finally say the word, fine, I will just pick. Usually I do that to stop the banter that's going on, and because I've reached my limit. All of us have a threshold of where we're going to be at, and I go, my hunger threshold had exceeded the conversation threshold, and so I'm like, no, I'm just going to end this, and we're just going to go. And so in my anger and my frustration, I'm tempted to lash out, and usually in those scenarios, God will help me, the Holy Spirit will help me, and I have this filter. Because what I want to say, and it'll process through, I'm like, that would be really good. And then the filter catches it, and I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I did not say that, because I like sleeping in my bed and not on the couch. And so we're driving along and frustrated, and I know exactly what I want. I want chicken. All right? Like, I don't know what your favorite thing is. If you can batter it, deep fry it, and give it to me, just take my money. All right? That's all I want. I wanted something greasy. I wanted to be able, whatever it is. You know, you have your cup of tea. You know, you get your gluten-free, blah, 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 whatever. I want fried chicken. All right? Because I'm a little closer to Jesus. And so whatever's good for you. And so I want chicken and all this stuff. And we pull in and I knew in that moment, and now the temptation is to just get angry because they're closed. You know which place is closed and always closed? Yeah, Jesus Chicken, all right? And you pull up, and it's like, no, I just celebrated Jesus. I wanted to eat some of that amazing stuff. And so I knew that I would be tempted even in the moment. And so I knew that because you can't get this today. Oh, that's good. That's good. But I knew that I would be tempted today in the process of talking about it, that I would want some, but I wouldn't do that to you. And so whoever wants to get up here first, you can't get this today anywhere else. And so, look, all right, see, there you go, man. Share that with everybody and pass on some germs. Here, we'll move this around because I just want to look at it. Yeah, if that had fallen, I would have been very sad. And so we pull up, and I'm just going to take one more. Yeah, you guys don't get any. And we pull up, and there's no chicken. It's closed. And man, I was devastated. I was done with it. I was so angry. I was so frustrated. And my temptation was just to lash out again and move on. But I was like, all right, we'll just go find another place. We drove off and found another place that was not Jesus Chicken. And I don't know about you, but temptation gets the best of me sometimes. In life, in my parenting, the temptation to not get down on my kids' level and have a conversation with them, the temptation is to just go, that was bad, and I'm angry, and the first thing I want to do is I just want to spank you. But I know, like, not every instance involves that. My instance when someone hurts me is to bristle up and want to hurt them back. When someone is not nice, our immediate reaction, what we want to do is to just lash out at them. The temptations rise up constantly. And so we look at the life of a guy like Joseph and we go, man, how is it? How do you follow God? How do you trust God? How do you move in God even when things don't work out? Because we all have that. We are told in the New Testament that we're going to have trouble, that God promises us that we're going to have hardship. And so if we're going to have hardship and God has this promise for us, how do we cling to and follow that promise even when things are hard, even when things don't go our way? Because the temptation is to just run off. The temptation is just say, forget it. Life is hard. Thanks God. You know, that's where Joseph's at. He's sold into slavery. His family thinks he's dead. The last thing I think he's doing in that moment, at least I would be doing, is going, thanks God. I love being in slavery. My family thinks I'm dead, and I'm in this foreign place with nobody I know. God's so good. Yeah. No, like I'd be like, yeah, what's up, God? Seriously? And here we catch up with Joseph as he's diving into this new place with this high-up leader and in all the things that are going on in the kingdom. And the leader sees him and actually says, man, there's something about you. Even though you're my slave, I want to give you kind of reign and control as you move through this over all of my stuff. Everything in my house, I just want you to be over it. Like you're just, in the story goes that God shows his favor on him and continues to deliver in that promise that, yeah, even though you're in slavery, all these great things are happening and that you have this freedom and you're moving around, you're doing these things. And we catch up with him and I go, man, what does it look like for him to face temptation? Because I want to learn from a guy where things didn't go well. I want to learn from a guy that's had some hard knocks. Because let's face it, all of us have it. And so if you have your Bible, you can follow along. It's in chapter 39. If you don't have a Bible, it'll be here on the screen. And it catches up right after that. It says, now Joseph was well-built and handsome. If you're having a hard time, processing, what does that look like? Just kidding. Yeah. Hey, easy. The laugh was a little too heartfelt. After a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. Now, I want you to note here that this is not a question mark. This is an exclamation point. She is shouting at him. Now, in this instance, a high ruler, a person of stature would not have a wife around him that is just meh. Potiphar, this high-up official, this leader, would have someone who is beautiful. Someone who would be a 10, if you will. Someone who people's jaws would drop as they would see her. And she's not saying like, hey, would you think about it? She's like shouting, I'm like, yo, you, me, yeah. So let's go and do this. But Joseph's walking around, so he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Verse 10. It isn't like this happened like once. It says, and though she spoke to Joseph day after day. She's a beautiful person. Joseph is walking around. If the movie version of this, like Bradley Cooper's walking around, taking care of the house. Easy, a couple of you ladies, and you're like, hey, perked up. And you're walking around doing this stuff, and he's like, no, this happened day after day after day. He refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. Now, I want to kind of pause there. See, this is one of those things. This temptation is huge. If we're talking about this openly in the room, most of us would look at this scenario and go, two beautiful people alone. He's in slavery. He has nothing else going for him at this point, even though he's head of the house. He's still in slavery. His family thinks he's dead, all this stuff. Why not just say, forget it, God, and charge into this scenario? He says, actually, in this temptation, I'm not even going to go where you're saying to go. I actually am going to refrain from being around you. I'm not even going to put myself in a scenario by which anything could remotely happen. I'm going to steer clear of you. See, Joseph's drawing really high-level boundaries around any type of temptation, about even going down the road because she's pressing him, he's not pressing her. And so as they move through this, he's like, listen, I'm going to draw this boundary. But it continues on. One day, he went into the house in the attendance to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak. Now she's getting crazy, all right? This lady is a cougar. She is chasing after him. She is being out of control, and she's continuing to shout at him. She caught him by his cloak and said, exclamation point at the end, come to bed with me. He's like, and I'll get up for a second. He basically, he left his cloak in her hands. She is grabbing him, screaming like she's crazy. She's cray-cray. She grabbed him, screaming, and he runs off, leaving his cloak there. I don't know what was underneath, but it's probably just his undergarments. That way he's running out like, I ain't going to have none of this. This lady is crazy. Leaves his cloak and moves on. Why? Because he was running from the temptation. It's like, I don't even want to be a part of it. Even if I don't think that Joseph was tempted in the regard that he was wanting any part of what was taking place there. He was just guarding himself because he knew it wasn't honorable. It's like people show up at our house and they go to drop something off, and I've shared this before. When they come to our house, if you're a lady and my wife's not there, even if my kids are there, and you say, hey, I got something for you, I'll be like, just leave it on the porch. You're like, no, I can't open the door. I'm like, I ain't opening the door. And they're like, are you for real? I'm like, oh, yeah. And they're like, do you think I'm going to do something? No, I just don't want somebody else to drive by and see your car and my car there with my wife's car not there. And so, because that's how rumors get started, the next thing you know, I ain't got no jobby job. And so, I love my wife and my family a whole lot, and so I'm not letting you in. So, and people are like, you're crazy. I'm like, yes, I am, about my wife and about my marriage and about this church. And so what Joseph's saying there, he's like, listen, I love all you guys. You guys are great. This house is great. My job, even though I'm in slavery, but girl, you cray-cray, and I'm leaving. Why? But I don't believe, and all of us would agree that temptation is pretty, in culture, especially we look at the Ashley Madison stuff and everything else that's going on, that temptation to go outside the bounds of that and just do what you want to do is very prevalent. But I don't believe that was his biggest temptation in this story. You see, she was going on and on. She cries out to the servants and everybody else that's in the home. And they run in and said, this man, this servant, he made sport of me. Look, his garment is here, and he ran off after I attacked him. And then she calls her husband in. So Potiphar comes in, and he starts talking with his wife, and she repeats it again. This man, he made sport of me. He was after me. And so even though Joseph was doing the right thing, and he walked away going man, I feel pretty good. I feel like I did what God told me to do. Man, I ran from that. Just because we follow God and do as he says does not mean that hurt still won't come. And this is where we get into what I think is the heaviest temptation for Joseph and for you and I in our context of when we go to work Monday, as we're working to Friday, as we get off for the weekend and we come back together again as we follow God, that temptation for you and I, and it continues on in this verse, verses 19 and 20. It It says, when the master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, this is how your slave treated me. He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. God, I'm doing everything that you said. God, I'm following you, and you gave me this promise. You said that everything's going to be awesome, and it's not awesome. My brothers tried to kill me. They sold me into slavery. They convinced mom and dad I'm dead. I'm in a foreign land with people I don't know, in a house with a lady who is coming after me. Then I honor you. I follow you. And now I'm in jail. Man, God is so good. Man, God, thanks. No, most of us would be like, that's it, God. I've had enough. The temptation there is to go, God, I'm trying. God, I'm following. God, I'm honoring. For real? For real. Is this what you're going to give me, God? Is this your promise? And in this room, and every time that we gather, and you guys watching online or in the lobby, that there are temptations for two different groups of people that are engaged in attending and are part of what happens at Forefront. Those of us who are following him, and those of us who have made that commitment to him. We've trusted him. We've surrendered our lives. We've been baptized. We're tracking with him. And then there's this other side where we just go, man, I'm still searching. I'm still asking questions, and I'm not following God yet, but I'm trying to work through this. In the temptation for this group, those of you guys who you're still journeying through this is what the temptation for you is that where I'm at is better than with Jesus. What I'm doing and how my life looks and everything is better than living with Jesus. Now, I believed that for a really, really long time. Is God was kind of like, I kept seeing these things in my life and things going on, and I thought I was smarter than God, which I hate to break it to you. He made you and your stinking brain and my brain, and if we think like, man, I think I figured this whole God thing out. I think I know better than God. God, that's great, but I've kind of do my own thing, and we get kind of cynical, or we kind of puff up that we know more or engage more. I go, man, now me looks back at old me and goes, man, you were dumb. That was dumb. Like really, like God of the universe, and we're like itty bitty me, and somehow I know more and better than he does. I'm like, man, that was dumb. And I would say that, man, I love you, but if that's where you're sitting at, man, that's gonna be a terminating kind of thinking. Because God wants you and I to engage him and have a better life with him. And there are stories all through Forefront, but even throughout the Bible is Jesus interact with people. There was this lady that was in a crowd, and she, for 12 years, had wrestled with we'll just put it, a female issue. And she had gone to doctors and other people, and it would not stop. And she didn't know what to do. And by ceremonial custom, she was known as unclean. She wouldn't have been able to go anywhere near the temple or church as we know it to worship. She couldn't be around any religious leaders. And one day, Jesus is out there teaching. And he's moving around the crowd. I mean, it is like shoulder to shoulder, touch each other. If you've ever been to like a concert where it's just packed in on an arena floor and you're like, yeah, I don't know you, but I can feel your sweat. Like this kind of thing. Like you're packed in. For some of you guys right now, you're having a panic attack even thinking about that. This is Jesus moving through the crowd. Everyone wants to be around him. And he has his disciples, his followers there, and they're moving through. And this woman just wanted to have a moment with Jesus. But she was terrified because of the life that she had been going through. And she was terrified because if she had been caught, the custom is that she would be stoned and killed to be around a religious leader. That was the law there. And so as she's moving through the crowd, I imagine her temptation as she's taking step after step. If I can just get near him. No, don't get near him. If I could just call out to him. And she doesn't call out, she's terrified. And I believe that's many people that engage faith and try to connect with the divine. They go, I just don't know. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to get involved in this, but I just don't know because God could never love somebody like me. God could never forgive some of the things that I've done and that I've been a part of and that I'm a part of now and the hurt that I have. He could never heal me. And she's taking another step and she's tempted. My life isn't My life is fine. It is not going to be better with Jesus. And she takes another step, and she fights back at it. And she doesn't call out to him. She doesn't ask him for help. She believes that if she can just sheerly touch his robe, that everything would change. Because her faith was that Jesus changes everything. And in that moment, in that moment she was healed. And I imagine she was like, and she could feel the moment. And it says she begins to almost hide herself in the crowd. But as it happened, it says that Jesus felt what happened, even in the midst of the elbow of sweaty people and everything. Who touched me? And his disciples were like, for real? Like, everybody's touching you right now, man. Like, it is so tight. And we're moving. There's guys saying, no. Someone starts scanning the crowd. Who was it? Who was it? Who was it? Who was it? And she's terrified. Oh, no, this is it. My life's over. That religious man, that Jesus, he knows what happened. He knows it was me. I'm dead. I'm dead. Turns to her. Your faith made you well. She believed. She believed that her life would be better with Jesus than without him. And we could march up story after story in our body of people who go, man, my life's better because of him. But what about us? What about those of you who already claim him? You've made that decision. You're a follower of Jesus. The temptation is where I'm at would be better without him. Now, most people would never verbalize that. Like if we did a poll of people who say, I love Jesus, I'm following him, I doubt that there would be a single person go, actually, I think my life would be better without him. Like I think it would be better if I just ran off and didn't do this anymore and engage faith anymore. But our actions, and I know this has been in my life, my actions sometimes have said to Jesus, I think my life would be better without you. Because when I wake up, and man, it's been a rough night. We have a baby, a 7-month-old, and she sleeps through the night most nights, but on occasion she's a baby. And so she'll, be up, and you get up, my wife and I, and it's tiring. Their kids will come into your bed because they're kids, and you're tired. And so you wake up, and what I want to do, and what I know I need to do is read my Bible, but man, I'm just really tired. I'll just hit that a few minutes longer, and I know I'm going to snore. My wife's going to smack my chest, and go on and not read my Bible. For those of us, the temptation is, man, I know that I need to pray, but I do pray, like sometimes, like when things are tough, like, God, I need you. Hey, this is going bad, all right? Hey, good, all right, pound it. Things are better now. We'll talk again when things are bad because I haven't talked to you in a while, and hopefully you'll remember me. Or we go, man, I hear what Jason said about moving to another service to help out other people, but like that'll be somebody else, right? Like I'm keeping my seat. You can't tell me, preacher man. And we do that. Or we go, man, there's a lot of kids back there, and I know I have little kids, but I'm not going back there with those little kids. I do this to get away from my little kids. And so don't send me back there to help out with little kids because that'd be crazy. Or we go, man, I hear them when they talk about the offering, and man, I give, but not that often. Man, if they knew my circumstances, they would understand. Like God understands. And what I watch is people get pumped about following Jesus. Like pumped. They meet, like life's going along, and everything's kind of meh, and then they meet Jesus, and they are like, woo! Like my life, and people start seeing it, not in a like, you don't go to work and be like, so do you know Jesus? Are you going to go to hell tonight? If you go to whatever, like don't go, but people interact with your life and they're like, man, your life has changed. Like, yeah, I'm engaging at church. Like, you go to church? Like, yeah. Like, that's crazy. And your life is doing this, and this happens for a month, a few months, a year, a couple of years, and then it turns this corner and starts plateauing. And that's when, like, all these things that people say are cliche about engaging God, like reading your Bible, serving, giving, praying, all that stuff, which they're cliche for a reason because they're true. And they track, and it's like, man, everything's awesome. And then it just and then it starts fading out. Like, you might know this feeling. Like, if you're a Redskins fan, you know this feeling of just, like you kind of track up and everything's, this year's going to be, yeah, no, it's not. And, just speaking the truth. And so as you walk through this, and we laugh, but this is what happens with people who claim faith. And I see it all the time. I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in lives of other people that I care about. Man, I'm excited. And then after months go by, years go by, and then they start slowly fading off, and then they stop showing up. They stop engaging stuff. And what people don't know is then we have to look at a little kid who goes, hey, where did Mr. John go? Mr. John's not around anymore. I go, man, I miss Mr. John. We have to look at a teenager who somebody showed up because they were real pumped about hanging out with teenagers who are so formidable at that age, man. Hey, man, where did, Miss Susie go? Miss Susie's not around anymore, I'm sorry. And I see people track off, and I just go, man, the temptation is to say, without saying it, where I'm at would be better without Jesus. And the truth is, that's not true. It actually gets worse. Because not only as you track away from Jesus, are bad things still going to happen, but you also don't have the hope to cling on to because you've walked away and he's going, I'm still here. Just come back. And so how do we turn that corner? I would tell you this and encourage you with this, that turning from those temptations leads to triumph. Turning away from those things leads you to places that are healthier. And it is a matter of a choice. I hear all sorts of things that have, Jason, you don't understand. I lost a loved one. Jason, you don't understand. My circumstances are X. Jason, you don't understand. And fill in the blank. And I go, man, I'm sorry. But it's still a choice. It's still a choice to wake up each day and go, I'm tempted to say no to Jesus, but I'm not going to do that because I know his way is better than my ways, even when things are hard. And I want to encourage you with this. You fight for the promise that God has for you in the good and the bad, because his promise doesn't change with circumstances. You have a bad day at work, his promise is still true. Your spouse walks out on you, God's promise is still true. Your kids look at you and they tell you, I hate you. And they run up to their room. And the temptation is you just want to go beat them. Like you could run up. You don't hate me. So they run off. And what you don't know, you're a teenager and you walk, is that your parents, as frustrated as they are when you run off, is that they cry. And the temptation is just go, whatever, forget it, God. The promise that God has for you and I does not change just because your circumstances change. And you may have believed that. You may believe that right now. Jason, you don't understand. And would say, you know what? I may not understand the specifics, but I understand the generalization of pain happens, but God is still faithful. See, the story of Joseph going to prison didn't end there. God still has this promise. He's in slavery. Now he's in slavery and in solitary. Thanks, God. Verses 20 and 21. This will be behind me on the screen. But while Joseph was there, in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. But why didn't God set him free from the prison? That would have been a loving God. Why didn't God get him out of slavery? God was still being faithful. You may be in a prison of your own creation. You may be in a prison of stuff that other people have done to you in circumstances. That does not mean that God is still not faithful and God still doesn't have a promise. God does. And he is delivering on that in his time. And I've watched so many people as they've come out of that time of sitting in that place where they felt like God was not showing up. And I said, just one more day. Just one more day. One more week. You can do this. That's why that gel group, that's why this is so important, because we need to look around and see there's other people that believe this too. There's other people that believe that there is hope on the other side of suffering, hope on the other side of hurt, on the other side of pain, and that God's promises still ring true. And Joseph knew it, and he was shown favor even in prison. And no matter where you find yourself this morning, and you're tempted to give up, and you're tempted to walk away, and you're tempted to just say, forget it. Don't give in, because you can have triumph if you just push through. Won't you pray with me?